So we've got a video that I'm really excited about today. It's another one that I produced for jazzlessonvideos.com. And so with this video, it's all about writing for big band. So this is really cool. I actually learned a lot from this package. And we've got Stephen Feifke today who's going to be breaking it all down for you. He turned it into a 6-step process. And so the first step is building chords. The second step is writing for the saxophones, then writing for the trumpets, then writing for the trombones. Tutti voicings is step 5, and then step 6 is putting it all together. And so Feifke's really streamlined this whole process. It all really makes sense. The package is a really useful tool because it's going to have all the steps and all the sub-steps. Of course, there are sub-steps that he uses. He talks about things like writing a single note line, then harmonizing a line, like saxophone solis, for instance. So it's all really cool to see how this all looks on the page. Then all the chords that he's written, for instance, he has tons of chords in it, and it's all written out for you, both as just a regular voicing and as seeing all the instruments and what note they play, transpose score and concert score. So really, it's a super cool package just to honestly look at and just see how everything works. Whether you're trying to become a functional big band arranger or whether you just want to know how it works, like me, it's a really cool resource. So without any further ado, here's Stephen Feifke with the Stephen Feifke Big Band, and you'll see there are a bunch of monster players in this band, so it's really cool that we were able to have them for this filming, and hope you enjoy it, guys.
So first things first, we're going to talk about how to build a chord from the bottom up and from section by section for the big band. We're going to do 3 main types of chords. First, we're going to do major chords. Second, we're going to do minor chords. And third, we're going to do dominant 7 chords. And for the sheet music for all of this, just check out the link in the video description below. So the way I built that chord is I started with the trombones. I put them in a root position voicing. Then I echoed the upper structure of a C major chord, right? In other words, that's an E minor triad. Put that in the trumpets. And then the saxophones, they're playing kind of all of the above, right? They're playing more or less in the register of the trombones, but they have the root position voicing and a couple more notes that's going to highlight that upper structure, that E minor upper structure. So to keep this video concise, now we're just going to play the chords all the way through. So our first step in writing for saxophones is first we're going to write out a melody and an accompanying set of chord changes. So for now, let's use the first 8 measures of a common chord progression as our harmonic template. When you're writing this, try to give your melody a good contour and remember to leave some space for the instrumentalists to breathe. For instance, the melody you see below has a nice up and down contour and some solid rhythmic variation. As a result, this melody will ultimately lend itself nicely to dynamic interpretation. The more specific you can get with articulation on the page, the better informed your band will be. Notice that even near the end where I begin to insert some modal mixture, the melody creates diatonic shapes and retains its linear motion. Okay, so step 2, let's add some harmony to this line. We have a couple different methods of doing this with the saxophone section, and we'll talk about a few of those here. So first, let's double the lead and keep our inner harmonies diatonic as much as possible. In moments where the line uses a tool such as chromatic approach note, it's okay in that moment to use a chromatic passing chord. For example, look at the last 16th note of beat 1 in measure 4. Also, note that the modal mixture at the end of the phrase is completely diatonic to the written chord changes. I'm going to follow the counterpoint in the second to last measure and use spread voicings instead of closed position voicings. On the following page, this solo is all scored out for the section, concert then transposed, with a sample accompanying bass line. So now that we have a solid shape and a harmonic outline for our soli, let's turn this 4-note double lead soli into a 5-note voicing throughout. So what I want you to do is go back to working from the grand staff for just a moment. Try and limit the counterpoint in your outer voices to 6ths and 7ths at the most. Clusters are better for now, but in some cases, you may expand your voicings to bring out certain rhythmic events in the soli. 1, 2, 3. All right, so step 4 for our saxophones. Now we're going to turn this 5-note closed position voicing into what's called a drop 2 voicing. So we're going to use the same exact notes as we did above. The only difference is that we're going to drop the second highest voice of the voicing down an octave. This is a very common technique that is used in saxophone soli writing, and pretty much it just helps spread out the harmony across the whole section. You can do this with 4-note voicings, but it's just way more effective to do this with 5-note voicings. Notice that I've changed some of the original voicing slightly in some cases just to fit the mode and the instrumentation a little bit better. On the following pages, you can check that out in the link below, right? Follow the video description, the link. And the instrumentation is just all scored out, and check that out. 1, 2. Okay, so step 1 for trumpets. Let's continue to use similar bebop changes as we were using for our saxophones and write a melody for our trumpets. Just like we did with the saxophones, we're going to try and give our melody a good contour, right, a good up and down motion, and we're going to remember to leave some space for the instrumentalists to breathe. Again, the more specific that you can get with the articulation, the better informed your band will be from the start. 1, 2. One easy way to score this passage for the trumpet section would be just to write a unison melody for all the trumpets, and let's check out what that might look like on your score, accompanied by a bass line. 1, 2. So one more similar option for the trumpets is to do what's called an octave split. The melody below contains trumpet 1 on the original melody the whole time, and trumpets 2 through 4 are going to be playing mostly down an octave, save for the figure that starts with the triplet on beat 2 of measure 4. 1, 2. Okay, step 2 for our trumpets. Let's add some harmony to this line. Trumpets work really well in clusters, or 4-note voicings that contain notes very close to one another. the line from above is going to be held the same in our lead trumpet part. Don't worry if not every chord extension makes it into each voicing. The below harmonization is just one way to harmonize this melody. 1, 2. The main difference in writing for the trombones is that their golden register is almost an octave below the lead alto sax or the trumpet section. So once again, I want you to try and give your melody a good contour and remember to leave some space for the instrumentalists to breathe. Use specific articulations so your section can be as informed as possible. Don't be afraid to write linearly for the trombones. They can be more agile than is often given credit. We'll start with a single note line. Notice the changes of clef from treble to bass. 1, 2. So, step 2 for our trombones. Just like with the trumpets, one of the most effective ways to orchestrate a line like this for your trombone section is to put them in unison. In measures 2, 3, and 6, the bass trombone must be scored down an octave due to range issues with the instrument. Sometimes it is just better to score a line like this for only the 3 tenor trombones and let the bass trombone rest. However, in the below example, the register of the bass trombone is taken into account and scored appropriately. 1, 2. So step 3 for our trombones. Let's harmonize this melody, and we're going to go back just for our first step and use the grand staff and use some closed position voicings. So again, we're going to use voicings where we're primarily focusing on clusters, and I don't want you to be worried if in some cases you're not using all of the appropriate extensions. We're just going to keep this modal. Let's check out how that sounds. Now that we've gotten a good feel for how these instruments work together as sections, right? The saxophone section, the trumpets, and the trombones, let's write a passage now where those instrument groups play all together at the same time. In other words, we're going to start writing a Tutti passage. Let's start the same way that we have been and write a single note line on the grand staff. 1, 2. Okay, step 2 for Tutti passages. Let's figure out what our trumpets are going to be doing and build down from there. So first things first, we're going to harmonize this melody in 4 parts. Feel free to switch back and forth this time between triadic shapes and 4-note clusters. Remember that we still must add in the trombones and the saxophones. You should take this time as an opportunity to get more specific with your choice of harmony as it more directly pertains to the specific line that you've written. 1, 2. So, step 3 for writing Tutti passages. Now that we have our trumpets more or less in place, let's add in our trombones. The goal here is to fill in the rest of the harmony needed in our voicing. In some cases above, the trumpet voicing already contains all necessary information for us to know what the chord is. In those cases, we can surely echo the high brass in an octave below in our low brass. In other cases, for instance, when we are using triadic shapes, it'll be necessary to add slightly more information. 1, 2. let's mix those sections together. Let's hear what the trombones and the trumpets sound like just on their own before we add in the saxophones to this Tutti passage. You know what? Okay, step 4 for writing Tutti passages. Most of our work here is already done. Let's add in our saxophone section. We shouldn't need any new notes because between the trumpets and the trombones, all of our harmonic information is already inside the voicings. What we are going to use the saxophone section to do is to highlight the overall sound of the harmony in each note of our melody. Sometimes that will mean using double lead voicings, sometimes that will mean using drop 2 voicings, and sometimes it'll mean doubling the trombones and some of the trumpets / vice versa. See below. 1. We're almost there. We've orchestrated our trumpets, we've orchestrated our trombones, and we've orchestrated our saxophones. Step 5 for writing Tutti passages, and last but not least, is to score out our rhythm section parts. Chord changes and slash markings are generally okay for most situations when dealing with the rhythm section. Some bass notes are given explicitly. 1, 2. Let's add all of this together. Let's just see what that Tutti passage, that 8-measure long Tutti passage sounds like scored out for the whole ensemble. 1, 2. In your packet, which you can find the sheet music for by following the link in the video description below, you're going to find at the end of it a couple of full ensemble pieces. First, we're going to play a song I wrote called Concrete Station. And all we're going to do for this song is we're going to put together the different sections that we've been writing, right? So we're going to use the passage we wrote for the saxophones, the passage we wrote for the trumpets, the passage that we wrote for the trombones, and then our Tutti passage, and we're going to put it all together. 1, 2.